Welcome to New Mexico Black Rifle Operators Union. I'm your host, Sean. Following my trip to Vegas, first of all, I hope you had a very, very happy Thanksgiving. I did. It was pretty chill. The whole week was. I got to see my kids, got to see one of my buddies, so it was a good time. But following my trip from Vegas, and I kind of knew it would happen eventually, I pulled the trigger, so to speak, on purchasing a bucket list item. I am now the proud owner of what is called an APC-5, or in the old province, it would be MKE, who is a Turkish manufacturer of HK-style rifles, so HK-style tooling. I bought an MP5 clone. Now, it's a pistol. I bought a brace to go with it. More so because the more I think about what's happening in our world with the braces stuff, I think that they're going to challenge it and win, because we've been on a good winning streak for the 2A lately. I will say, though, that you can't be complacent. There's a letter going around from Gun Owners of America where you can just sign your name and add your email, and they'll send it to politicians in Washington. Because what the ATF is trying to do is backdoor block the use of stabilizing braces. So there's millions of these out right now, and mostly in the AR world, because an AR pistol is kind of cool. Okay, I don't understand why it was approved under the Obama administration. I don't even know that it's been used by criminals en masse, so I don't know why they're going after this so hard. It is a viable option to help you stabilize it, and if you have any stabilize this type of pistol, that is, or if you have friends who are, in veterans that are disabled, or you have veterans or just disabled people in general, this actually helps them. It's one of the reasons why I've kept one. And I seriously am not willing to turn it in. Free men don't ask permission. But I also think that it's a stupid rule, because whether you have a brace or you have a stock, it doesn't matter. The length of the gun doesn't matter. It never has. It's, as far as concealment, if you're going to conceal something, you're going to conceal it. So what is more terrifying is what has went on in Washington. And I've told you, not Washington, Oregon. I've told you guys about this, but you guys need to be aware during this off time, because this is when they start doing this type of stupid stuff in Washington, is they're going to start pushing bills. And with the recent activity of idiots who shouldn't have had firearms to begin with, but I digress, meaning that they were on the radar, law enforcement knew about them, none of the background check stuff stopped any of this stuff. Making it more intense is not going to help. And if you're not terrified by that prospect, look at what passed and what the FUDs in Oregon passed themselves. There are literally people who say they passed this law so that a criminal won't outgun them. Last time I checked, criminals don't follow laws. That's why we have this problem. You're assuming that a criminal has the same ethos as you do. It's not going to work that way. It never has. It never will. All the laws that are on the books are usually to keep law-abiding people in line so that we can live amongst each other. That said, these people that have twisted off are not people you can reason with. And how they keep getting access to firearms has more to do with mental health issues not being addressed by either their family, their close friends, law enforcement itself, or they are so isolated that nothing, and off the grid, nothing will track them or allow them to be flagged in any way. Now, red flag laws have been a thing. I believe they were a thing in Colorado. And that last shooting at a gay nightclub, it's turning out that there's stuff on both sides of the fence here. And what I mean by that, it's now coming out that this guy may be trans or bi or pansexual. Okay. It also could be, because this came out too as an option, and there's no corroboration from any of these sources, that it could be this person was far right and is claiming this so that he can gig the justice system in his favor. Either way, it shows a deranged individual that shouldn't have been near a gun. Now, we've talked about this. I've said it before. There's like 1, maybe 2% of people I've ever met, ever, that I think, yeah, that's someone that shouldn't have access to a firearm. Now, when I say that, that's me being a 2A guy. And it hasn't necessarily meant that I knew they had a gun. It was more so, I hope they have never had a gun or never could. Because they were, in my opinion, which, take that as it is, my opinion, they personally are idiots. So they don't need to have access to something that could hurt someone else. Now, this smacks of, elitism, where I make that determination, but I think we all have that determination to some degree. We can scratch our head and go, that person just isn't right. Maybe we shouldn't let them near other people, kids, guns, vehicles, because they're doing weird stuff. There's usually tells. This guy that shot up the nightclub in Colorado, the reason why I know this is because I have friends in the gay community. I personally am not a gay dude. I'm straight as an arrow, but I've known these people for years, and this bothered them. Okay? So I looked at it to see what it was going on, just for my own interest. And what it could be is also outright rejection. Maybe this guy didn't present the way they wanted him to, and they told him to get bent, and he wanted his pound of justice and went and got it, got his guns and went in and did what he did. Now, either way, to me it's unhinged, it's unthinkable, and I don't understand it, but it's going to continue to put political pressure on the people and the companies in general. And what I mean by this is, think of the censorship stuff that's happened in the social media space. Well, it's now being focused more on the 2A. And what I mean by that is that they're going after payment processors, so you can't purchase things from certain companies because they do business with 2A community businesses, companies that make weapon A, weapon B, whatever. This is trying to cut directly to them. The other thing they do is they do ammunition halts. Biden, one of the things that is a big win for Biden as far as gun ban type stuff is the Russian ammo ban, because it bans cheap ammunition as a source for the average everyday American who doesn't have the thousands of dollars to train with high-end ammunition, but this gave them an option so they could go shoot their weapon and become more proficient. So he took an ammunition source directly away from the poors, as you call them, or people in general who are just trying to defend themselves. He's also gone gung-ho after everything you can right now, and thankfully the House turned. That doesn't mean that they're on our side, because there's plenty of people on right and left that are anti-gun nowadays. So you need to be very proactive. But back to the fun stuff, the MP5. I could give you lists of why I did what I did and why I bought what I did. The number one reason is my dad bought me a cap gun that was an MP5. Even when you could slide the magazine out, you could put a row of these plastic caps in it, and when you fired the caps, they would go bang and they would strip off from the strip and kick out the top. Now, I had that thing forever until it was time for real guns all the time, and Dad took away my toy guns. But it was a proper memory, and I think Dad used it as a training aid. And it was one of the guns that made me go down the HK collector type thing. Now, I have HK style rifles, not actual HKs. My C96 is one of the only straight 5.56 builds I've ever seen. With that, it's also, if you don't count the receiver, it's all HK parts. So I consider it an HK. Getting an MP5, what I noticed shooting one. Recoil impulse, everyone is 100% right that has ever shot one. The recoil impulse is exactly perfect for the type of gun it is. Now, 9mm is diminutive, meaning that it's not going to go out and reach out, 300, 500 meters. But if you were going to have to carry one gun during the zombie apocalypse, an MP5 wouldn't be a bad option if you were in a city. Even a semi-automatic one. And I say that because they're accurate, they have tons of capacity, they aftermarket for any of the things you would want to throw on them. Mine has both options of a tri-lug or a 1/2x28 thread suppressor. After shooting a suppressed MP5 in Battlefield Las Vegas, I probably will eventually buy a suppressor. The reason why I got this as a pistol and why I'm trying to keep it as a pistol as long as I legally can is it was a dream, one, to have an MP5, always with a collapsible stock. This is as close as I can get to a collapsible stock without form wanting in. Two, it would be nice to have the giggle switch, but you can't have that unless you have a registered trigger pack, and then I'd have to do modifications to the gun to get a trigger pack to work. Doesn't matter. What I liked was the recoil impulse, the fact that it uses 9mm. It gives me a training option, a magazine source, and a very good reputation that will help reinforce the training with my preferred .308 battle rifle. So that's why I got it, in addition to it being a bucket list item. I know one of my listeners, good friend, he bought an engine for one of his rides, and it dynos at this ridiculous speed. Now, he may have caught hell for that. I personally think it's fucking rad. Pardon my French. But what I really started thinking about with all the death I've seen in the last 18 months, losing my parents, just seeing what's happened to the world, and that we are just here for a blink of time. Speak your mind, do what's right, live your life, and check off those bucket list items, because tomorrow's not guaranteed. Take every chance you can. It sucks because I've recently told someone exactly what I think of them, and I've said this, it's been an ongoing conversation, but I don't get very much feedback back, and I don't know if the words landed with grace or if they were landed with, oh shit. Either way, they're off my chest. I can live that way and do what I need to do. And I think that's how we all need to live nowadays. COVID should have done a couple of things. Should have woken you up to how close your parents and your family are to you. And those of you who will look out for you when there is just your local community. And when I say that, during the COVID stuff, if I was sick, and I did get sick eventually, I think all of us did, right? I live alone with a dog and some cats. Sometimes my son stays here, sometimes he doesn't. But mostly it's alone. And either I go to work or I come home. Sometimes I do other fun stuff, especially with the 2A lately. But it adds that bit of, there was a moment where I had to quarantine because I got the sniffles, but it was exhibiting every bit of the COVID symptoms. I had 2 people I could call right away, or I could think of, right? But then comes out later, I have way more. I have way more support than that. People you can actually count on, Those are the things you should know after the COVID stuff. Who can you count on? I had people, my friend drops off stuff every Christmas that his wife makes for us. I have friends that dropped off beer during the COVID stuff just because they wanted to do Friday night beer stuff. And I'm trying to think of if my friends would be willing to do one of my other podcasts just because it's live on a Friday night. Maybe it's like we call it Your Donut, You Eat It Power Hour. But maybe doing that together because it was a good bonding experience with all my friends. I have some friends that are working out a lot. I have my friends that are working, perfecting a lot of cool stuff, building rides. And that's what I think everyone has started doing, is we've started going back to our lives, us Americans that is, and trying to get back as much as we can and progress forward. What's coming down the pipe is going to make a lot of people's heart hurt. We're going to see some of our most favorite places that we wanted to visit probably crumble. And I say that because the world's in a different place than we are. Everyone, if you haven't looked at the news, that's something else I probably start doing for this, is integrating just news pieces, things you should be watching out for yourself, whether they tie to the 2A or not, but stuff you should check out because it's going to be important. One of them is there's protests in a lot of China right now against Xi Jinping. Now, the problem is that the dude has got more power than Mao in China. So he's more likely to be more restrictive and do something more violent to quell the protests. And the more it is seen, the more likely that is an option. Europe right now, I feel for my friends in Germany right now because winter's hit. If Ukraine is -4°C last time I saw the weather for Ukraine, that means it's getting pretty cold in Germany too. And their sole source of, well, not sole source, but one of their primary sources was natural gas from Russia. Now, you could talk about, hey, they should have been getting it from the U.S. and all this other stuff. That's great. But that's not where it is. That's not how it rolled. And, well, we're here now because of Putin, sort of. It just sucks seeing people you care about, even ones you're not super tight with, in other parts of the world, they're about to get hosed. So my advice to you with the 2A, don't bankrupt yourself. I didn't bankrupt myself for buying this weapon. This was probably a known purchase coming. I had funds for one of two options, and I chose the MP5 after shooting one. But don't give up on your dreams. Don't give up on those bucket list items. Yes, you can't take them with you, but at least you got to enjoy them while you're here. Like, share, subscribe, be great.